I've got some of Gary's top secret Bloody Mary mix.
Hey, way to go, Rebecca.
Good.
Now I'm going to take it down to the company pharmaceutical division and have it analyzed to find out Gary's secret ingredient.
No need to do that, Rebecca. Sammy, pour me a shot of that concoction. I'll tell you exactly what's in it. Yeah, I don't know what's in it, but Gary makes the best Bloody Mary I've ever tasted.
All right, Sammy, set me up with a shot of that,
Some of that.
Hey, you guys, don't drink it all. I have to take some to the lab.
This is great. Gary deserves to win this contest every year.
It's almost worth cramming myself into this dress.
Hey, I'd dress up as a hooker to get some of this stuff.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what's the trope we're talking about today?
Well, we're doing round 2 of our long-running fan favorite gags. I guess they're not even gags, but they're like tropes of, so like the slap bet in How I Met Your Mother.
They're traditions, which last time we need to do a little bit of a previously on the Sitcom Study, because we did this about a year ago. We did our episode where we covered the first of all of these, which was, as you said, the Cheers Bar Wars, the How I Met Your Mother slap bets, the Brooklyn Nine-Nine Halloween heists, and the Community Paintball Wars. I made the observation then that they're not so much traditions as violent conflicts where the characters make enemies of each other and have to vex each other in some way. But yeah, last time we covered this, we did all the first episodes. We spent our little preamble sort of explaining this concept. So I didn't get to ask you, both of us are very blessed, I would say, to have many friends from childhood, from high school that we've known a long time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything like this? Any sort of bet or gag or joke or conflict or something that has recurred over the years?
Not that I can think of. I mean, but I think that's more just because life isn't a sitcom. Like, you're not trying to go for ratings. I mean, not to say that people don't. No, I don't know. My group, we all do theater. So, I think that's our like weird thing that we do.
Well, maybe my life is a sitcom because I have several of these just off the dome. My friend Dennis and I, about halfway through high school, made a bet that neither of us would ever wear jeans again. And
oh
the first one,
is that why you don't wear jeans?
Largely, yes. We just got into wearing like khaki pants and like slacks of various kinds. And then one day, a few years later, I went over to my friend's house on like a Saturday night, where a bunch of people were hanging out, and Dennis was there in boxer shorts because he had to shed his jeans when he found out I was coming. So yeah, that was the thing that I ultimately won. I don't think it's really still going on. I think he still wears blue jeans, but I don't ever wear them. So that's one. My friend Rosie and I had a really weird
but what was the bet?
I don't even remember what the stakes were, honestly. This was, like 30 years ago that we made this bet. My friend Rosie and I, it wasn't a bet, but it was a weird thing where every Friday he tried, when we lived together, he would try to cue me up. He would say, what's today or something at the end of the week. He would go like, wait a minute. We can't do it on that day or something like that, trying to get me to go, why, what's today or what's happening on Friday or whatever. And he would say, Pizza Friday. And he just found
I've heard him tell that story.
Yes. That does still go on to this day. We'll text each other and, he'll go like, oh, wait a minute, make sure it's not on the 12th, and I was like, wait, what's the 12th?
What's the 12th?
Pizza Friday. And and he never gets one by me anymore. Now when he tries to attempt that in a text, I always respond with a GIF or something that I've grabbed off the internet about Pizza Friday.
There are GIFs on Pizza Friday?
Oh, yeah. Pizza Friday is a thing. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Not just a you thing?
No, it's not. You'll see lots of Ninja Turtles memes, etc.
About Pizza Friday or just pizza?
No, Pizza Friday is a thing.
This is not something I'm aware of.
had Pizza Friday when I was a kid in my family.
Okay.
So yeah, those are things that have recurred in my life. They're not as grand as some of these, but let's get right into it. What are our shows? What did we watch?
All right, so we're now into the second installment of Bar Wars. This is Bar Wars 2, The Woodman Strikes Back, Season 7, Episode 10 of Cheers, and then Community, Paintball. This is the second iteration. It's a two-parter. It was the season finale of Season 2, so we've got episodes 23 and 24, A Fistful of Paintballs, and For a Few Paintballs More. Then we'll have How I Met Your Mother, Season 2, Episode 16. So Slap Bet Part 2 is in the same season as Slap Bet Part 1. And this one's called Stuff. And then we watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Halloween Heist. This is, we watched Season 2, Episode 4, Halloween 2.
Yeah, so Bar Wars began, the one we covered last year was a two-parter.
No, it wasn't a two-parter. We watched two different episodes from two different seasons.
Fair enough.
So the way this kind of was set up was that they established in Season 4 that there was this other bar, Gary's Old Town Tavern, that they didn't like, but there wasn't a Bar Wars.
Yeah, there was a skirmish, if you will.
Right. It was just like a mention of we don't like this bar and we compete with this bar, but no, it wasn't like the whole deal of the story. Then the actual Bar Wars 1 was in Season 6, and that was the bowling game.
Gotcha. Yes, that's the one that I really remember, the bowling match. And so, yeah, they're
celebrating their second anniversary of having actually won, because I think it was in Season 4 they won for the first time. The thing with Bar Wars is that they never ever win.
Yes, and the only way they even attempt to win by the time we get to Bar Wars 2 is with tomfoolery.
Right.
That was one of my notes here, that it seems to go without saying that whatever the venue, whatever the contest, the Cheers gang they're like the bad guys in most things. They have to win by cheating.
Yes, always. And they always, what's so funny is that there was a moment in this episode where Sam's trying to get them to like go outside of the bar to have a secret meeting, but he wants them all to kind of like leave individually, secretively, like not draw attention to the fact that they're all going to go outside and have a meeting. And they can't get it together. But yet in so many other episodes, that kind of it's exactly what they do. They sort of, one of them sneaks off and does this thing, and one of them sneaks over here and does this, and like no one ever notices. So they're really good at pulling these shenanigans at every other episode except the Bar Wars episodes.
Yeah, and in this case, the contest is going to be a Bloody Mary contest.
That's right, which really made me want a Bloody Mary. I read an article the other day that there's something about the way tomato juice, like the enzymes in tomato juice and the oxygen and something, that when you're on an airplane, tomato juice tastes different and better because of the altitude and oxygen and something. And I'm like, I want to go on a plane because I want to have a Bloody Mary on a plane because apparently it tastes way better.
Yeah. For me, a Bloody Mary contest, to borrow the tagline from Alien vs. Predator, whoever wins, I lose. I don't like Bloody Marys.
You don't like tomato juice.
I have a weird relationship with tomato products where
but not pizza.
Well, that's the thing. I am happy to eat tomato sauce on spaghetti, pizza, whatever. I don't like eating actual tomatoes. And whenever I see somebody drinking a Bloody Mary, it just looks like they're drinking a glass of tomato sauce. And I just find that kind of repulsive. And I understand there's a difference, but there's something, the texture of it, the color, it does not appeal to me at all. Having a big celery stick in the middle of a glass is not doing it any favors in my book.
A lot of times they'll do like martini olives or olive stuffed with blue cheese, all things that you don't like that I like. There was this brunch buffet bar that we used to do karaoke at, but on Sundays we did karaoke's on like Thursdays, but on Sundays they had this like big brunch bar.
We being you and other people.
Yes,
not me
and you, me and my friends when I lived down south. But so this place we would go and they had a Bloody Mary bar as part of their like brunch buffet, and you could get like
the soda things at Burger King where you have the different dispensers.
No, it was you could deck out your Bloody Mary with like half of a grilled cheese sandwich and a piece of
was
bacon
there like a big
and like
punch
olives
bowl
and all this
of
stuff.
tomato juice? How did you get?
They had, like a those little drink dispensers where you turn the knob at the top like lemonade or punch or something.
Like a lemonade thing.
Yeah, and that would be where the Bloody Mary like base mix
that
was.
would be even worse to me.
And then you could put in whatever vodkas you wanted. You could like pepper and salt and all of these like all the fixins to make them. But legitimately like half of a grilled cheese sandwich you could stick on a skewer and stick in there. It was so good.
Yeah, well, we're going to get all about the sort of like inner workings of the Bloody Mary recipe because that's really where we start. Is the gang is like briefly trying to win it legitimately,
right?
And so they're like, all right, we need to make the perfect Bloody Mary.
Yeah, Sam's trying to do it, and he doesn't drink, so he's trying to get everybody in the bar to taste it for him.
Yeah.
Carla comes back from Chinatown. That was her errand, was to go and get black cardamom.
Cardamom, okay.
Mm-hmm. And so, which is, like it's a sort of spicy pepper. Cardamom is you don't like Indian food, but that is the smell that oftentimes you're smelling in Indian food that you're like, oh, that smells weird. Right. It's not black cardamom, that's just regular cardamom. But anyway, so black cardamom, Sam sent Carla to Chinatown to go get it, and he sent Kirstie Alley, Rebecca, to Gary's Old Town Tavern to try to see if she could get the recipe.
Yes, she brings back a sample of Gary's Bloody Mary. That's right. Now, let's just pause a little bit and do a fashion corner, because this is one, usually we watch these episodes, we keep our thoughts to ourselves, but you could not help remarking about Woody's Smee shirt, which is what but before we get to that, I'll say Rebecca walks in dressed like Itchy or Flat Top or one of the bad guys from the Dick Tracy movie.
Because she's got this big purple overcoat. Blue
coat. She just, in that movie, they would dress them all in the primary colors of like newspaper comics, and they were all wearing those big trench coats. And that seems to be Rebecca's style, just like these big, bold colors in the form of a trench coat.
Right, as opposed to the pastels of Diane in earlier seasons.
And then Woody is wearing a shirt that I thought looked like Smee from Peter Pan because it's got the stripes.
It wasn't just the stripes. It was that the sleeves, where the shoulder normally hits on like the edge of your shoulder, it was a drop sleeve. So like the shoulder was hitting kind of midway down his bicep.
Yes.
And then the opening for his arm was like 4 times the usual size.
It was like an angel's, like when you make a snow angel.
It was like a poncho cut as a shirt, but only in the arms. It was like the strangest
bell bottoms for your arms.
For your elbows.
Yeah. And then later in the episode, he's going to be wearing a button-up shirt with these vertical stripes that have like Chinese or some sort of Asian letters on them.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, some really bizarre outfits in this. But anyway, that's their mission. Woody keeps messing up their black cardamom thing because he keeps
allergic
sneezing
to it. So he sneezes into the little bit, Carla says it's the only black cardamom left on the eastern seaboard. And then he looks at it, he's like, oh, what's that? And then sneezes and it goes everywhere. So that's their secret ingredient lost. They're not going to be able to use that. And then the Bloody Mary mix from Gary's gets there. Rebecca brings that and everybody's tasting it a little bit. And they're like, you have to save some though, because we're going to take it to the lab to figure out what's in it. And, everyone's like, oh, wow, this is really good. And this all comes back later. But they're like, oh, man, Rebecca had been wearing an open back dress. And that's how she was able to distract Gary so she could grab the little vial of, the little container of Bloody Mary mix. And Norm goes, oh, I dress up like a hooker to get some of this too. And so, they're like, wow, this is the best Bloody Mary I ever tasted. And then Woody's like, well, I got to try some of that. And he takes it and immediately sneezes, drops the, carafe and shatters everywhere. So now they don't have a sample to send to the lab.
Yeah, and then Gary...
And he goes, obviously, there was black cardamom in it.
Yeah. Gary walks in, and we get... we already established last time there are two different actors that take turns playing Gary throughout this series.
Right, this is the original guy again, Joe Polis or whatever. He was in the very first episode we watched. He wasn't available for the second episode that we watched. Now he's back again for this Bar Wars. I think he maybe only is available again for one more of them. It's mostly the other guy.
Yeah, he comes in, he's all smug, he's teasing them, and then he lures all of the patrons away by saying, hey, if anybody wants to watch the big fight, we've got a, widescreen TV or whatever.
And we're the only one airing it because it's on pay-per-view, and Cheers isn't, kicking up the cash to do it.
So, yeah, we get everybody, including most of our, series regulars, Norm and Cliff and whatever, kind of like, shuffling off.
Heading to the door, and then they're like, I'm just going for a little walk. What a nice turn around the bar.
Yeah, exactly. We see Gary go on some sort of like local television thing, and he's like, I placed a hidden camera inside Cheers so you can see that even they think that my Bloody Mary is the best. And then he shows his hidden camera footage, which doesn't look at all like hidden camera footage. It just looks like the A or B camera of the sitcom shoot. Like it's just the same footage we watched as part of the sitcom, with the characters going like, oh my God, we'll never beat Gary's Bloody Mary. His is the best.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was and it wasn't, right? It definitely was all from this one perspective, directly across the bar from where they were sitting. It would have been where the little, we always have a little cold open. The cold open in this is Lilith. She doesn't want to participate in Frasier's mommy fantasy. Yeah. And then that's all we see of her in this episode. But she is at that part in the bar that we see oftentimes at the very beginning where someone walks in, has a little conversation with Sam. Very first episode of Cheers, that's where he and Diane got into it. That end of the bar, which is the opposite end of the bar from where Norm and Cliff normally sit. So it just looks like they had somebody sitting there as a patron that had a little, camera, had their purse sitting on the counter or something like that. What was interesting about this episode, though, you were mentioning the camera angle, and this made me remember this. Throughout this episode, they are cutting. The editing is like insane in this episode. Like normally these sitcoms have 3 cameras. Well, this was almost like live cuts. It was like every time, somebody had a line, they would be on them in this little tight shot, and then they would move to a different angle. And then, camera 1 would be over here, camera 3 would be over here, and then camera 2 would be here, and then 3 would move, and then it would be in a different place. And it was like cut. It was a very quick edit.
It was weird, particularly at this section, because we both kind of noticed it around the same time. Like you made a mention of it just like a few seconds after I had the same thought. Like, boy, they're really cutting a lot.
Yeah, and that was only because I'd been watching it for a little while being like, this is a lot. And I'm like, I'll save it for the podcast. But then it was so much. I was like, I have to say something. Yeah.
But so their first major sort of espionage idea is they're going to send Woody to spy, right? And
they're going to they were going to come up with a plan, and we find out later that the plan was Woody is going to spy.
Well, but at first the second one is a secret to us, the viewer. First, they just say, Woody, go spy on them, and like within minutes, he's bound and gagged and hanging upside down at the door, and they found him, they spotted him or whatever.
So remember when I was telling you how they all went outside to have that meeting? What was decided at that meeting was all of this. It was that Woody was ostensibly going to go spy, and then he was going to come back and everybody was going to make fun of him, and that was going to lead to this fight. And then the fight, he was going to quit, and then that's what everybody was going to see because they knew they had patrons inside Gary's that were spying for Gary after the hidden camera thing. So that was all, like they created all of that plan off camera.
Right, but we, the audience, don't know that until later. Yeah. So first we see Woody just going, hey, I'm going to spy, gets bound and gagged. And he explains that he went to the bar disguised as a nun and it didn't work. They saw through it. And so, yeah, they're like, Woody, you're so dumb. And he's like, if someone calls me dumb one more time, I'm never coming back here again. And Ted Danson goes, don't say that. That's stupid. And he's like, that's it. That tears it. And so, yeah, he goes across the street to work for Gary. And yeah, there's so many levels. This is like The Spanish Prisoner. Like, there's so many levels of deception here. Like, I'm watching this going like, Gary would be pretty dumb to hire Woody, right? Because Woody goes, he says, oh, I hate those guys at Cheers now. I need a job. Will you hire me, Gary, to be your bar back or whatever? And I'm thinking like, well, yeah, like Gary must... like he would at least wait till after the contest to hire him. But then I'm thinking like, well, maybe this is all part of Gary's evil plot, or maybe Gary knowing that is part of Cheers' evil plot. It's you know, there's a lot of layers, but Gary says, yeah, why not? Welcome aboard. You're on our team now.
Right. And some of his patrons are like, can we trust this guy? And then Woody is just Woodying, right? He comes out and he's like, oh, I found a nickel in this apron. Should I put up a poster?
Yeah. Now, I will say, and I don't know if it's just my tastes or if they don't have, the resources to make this secondary location as extravagant as the main location, but Gary's bar
sucks.
We're supposed to understand like, he's the overdog. His bar is always doing better business, etc. It's smaller, it's uglier, like it's got these green walls that don't hold a candle to the sort of mahogany, motif of Cheers. So I found that like, a little off-putting. Like this almost looks like a dive bar compared to Cheers. But regardless,
sometimes those dive bars just have better drinks though, Jay.
Well, yeah, fair enough. And so it's not long before Woody comes in and is like, oh, hey, Gary, this letter came for you. I forgot to give it to you, but here it is. And it's a letter saying the time of the Bloody Mary contest has been moved up 2 hours. And so they're already late for it. And this, I don't know if we're supposed to understand that time has passed. It seems to me that he
says, thanks. Gary starts that whole little exchange by saying, I was skeptical at first, but the past couple weeks, you've really been doing a good job.
Okay. So, all right. So this is weeks later. And so Gary's like, oh my God, runs across the street and he almost, misses out on the whole thing, but he comes in just in time and wins the contest, or so we think. Again, one of many sort of fake outs we've seen before. They introduced the guy who's going to judge the contest,
right?
And he's got this gigantic beard. Now,
well, it's not gigantic; it's just really full, and so it's not long.
No, it's not long.
It's
big
close,
and bushy.
It's close cut, but very full.
It is the kind of beard that people with fake beards often have.
100%. Like when initially the guy came in, I was like, well, he's definitely looking like a character. And then when we go and we actually get this contest that, ostensibly Gary is missing, it looks even more fake. Like it looks like somebody in a costume. And I'm sitting there like, gosh.
Because it is.
It is.
But I thought he was a guy in a costume from the beginning. I didn't realize that they cast this guy and did him up in a way so that he would look like somebody that you could impersonate by putting a fake beard on.
Right.
And so, he's a real guy that we met earlier. But then when Gary comes in and says, at the last minute, I'm just in time, here's my Bloody Mary, and he wins the contest and then, goes off gloating or whatever, we discover that this bearded guy who just awarded him the win is in fact Woody in disguise with fake eyebrows, fake beard, etc.
So he starts taking everything off and the whole gang is cheering like, we finally won. Yay, we finally won. And Gary comes back in and he's like, you think you guys are so smart. I knew it was you, Woody. And he's like, when does the real contest start? And so then the real contest starts and they have the real guy with the real beard doing the whole thing. And and again, Gary wins. Everybody's unhappy. He leaves and, he's all celebrating with his two little cronies. And then they go off and leave. And the camera shot pans over and we see Carla paying the judge.
Yeah.
And the gang is like, why are you paying this guy? You're supposed to pay him before so that we will win. And she was like, oh no. This isn't the real contest. And they were like, what do you mean? And they were like, Carla, you spent all your money for that? Like, you should have taken up a collection. And she was like, oh no, I lifted Gary's wallet. I'm paying him with Gary's money.
Yeah. And then Gary comes back and he's like, the jig is up, everybody.
And everyone's
I know
like,
what you did.
No,
yeah.
thinking they've been caught. But he's like, you have my wallet. Give me back my wallet. And Carla's like, and Sam's like, oh, yeah, sure. Here you go. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Not the last time that a pickpocket is going to factor into our stories here. And so what happens after that? My last note.
The actual contest isn't due to start for like another hour. And they have fully convinced Gary that he has now won both the fake contest and the real contest. And that's it. And he comes and he gets his money and he pieces out. And so now they know they're going to be a shoe-in to
they're
win.
Running unopposed.
Right.
And so we don't see the real contest.
No,
right?
we don't.
It just ends with that. Yeah. And this is where I put in my notes. It seems to go without saying that the Cheers gang can't win fairly. Yeah. This just becomes like like spy versus spy.
You know,
just,
they're a beer bar. Let's just leave it at that.
A deception contest, basically. But yeah, look, this is very fun, right? I like this Gary guy. I totally buy into him as like, you know, like it's not like he's an outright scumbag, but he's just this sort of like obnoxious guy.
Yeah.
And the whole thing works. I like the sort of the spying, the Woody dressed up as the nun, and fun episode.
Yeah, well, I would say we didn't get to see Woody dressed up as the nun, but
no,
all
that's
of the
true. But we get to see him, dressed up as the bearded judge.
I think one of the funniest moments is you're looking at the door of Cheers, and all of a sudden, Woody's head descends down into the window pane with tape over his mouth, and he's basically being hung from his feet from the street above down to the downstairs.
They always show you the establishing shots of Cheers, so it's one of those like sort of you walk down little stairs to get into the bar. But yeah, they were doing this. Like Gary's goons were like tying this guy up and you know stringing him by his feet like in broad daylight on the streets of Boston, and nobody seemed to mind.
Of course not. Why would they?
All right, let's move on to Community.
Season 2, episodes 23 and 24, a fistful of paintballs, and for a few paintballs more.
Yeah, these Community episodes truly are the centerpiece of these things. You know, all of these episodes are fun, but these are really overachievers in terms of the way that they present this stuff.
Yeah, these are the ones that it was this episode, this like 2-part episode, is the thing that made Marvel hire the Russo brothers away from the show.
Directed by Joe Russo, you see in the credits. These are 2 episodes, and they're going to have 2 different mise en sens, if you will, even though both of the titles are plays on Clint Eastwood Western movies, but really the first episode is going to be the Western motif, and they acknowledge very explicitly the second episode is going to switch to a Star Wars thing. This starts very much in media res with Annie, Alison Brie's character, is, just in the midst of this sort of like showdown with these other students that we don't know, and it just thrusts us right into this sort of
we do know. It's Anthony Michael Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's his character?
He is a bully in an earlier episode.
Gotcha. I did not notice it was him.
That's Anthony Michael Hall, also who was Chevy Chase's son in the Christmas Vacations,
one of them,
right? Yeah, one of them. So anyway, but yeah, he plays a bully in an episode, I think from season 2. I'm not sure. It might be season 1, but I think it's season 2. He plays like a bully. And so now he's back in the game. And that's what's great about these paintball episodes is that anybody who goes to Greendale can be a part of the paintball assassin game.
Yeah.
So they bring in all of their big cast of characters.
Everybody. Yeah. And the main characters are introduced with this convention where, they do a freeze frame and then they bring up like Annie, the ace of spades or
ace
something.
Of hearts.
Yeah.
That matters.
Okay. But yeah, they have them, they're all different card, card things.
They're all the different cards that they played in the card game that Pierce caught them playing.
Gotcha. And yeah, this technique probably does go back to like the original Westerns, but to me, it reminds me of the Robert Rodriguez movies like Machete and Desperado. vibrato. They would do, he loved to do this, the freeze frame, and then have like a stylized
the whip
title.
Or the gun, and then the music like playing underneath it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get one of the fun things about these special community episodes, a custom theme sequence, which is very much modeled after the Saul Bass credits with the cool, like, cutout silhouettes and everything. And it just, I don't know if that's referencing specifically A Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More, the Clint Eastwood movies, if they had title sequences like that. Or
that
just
in general.
Yeah, but very cool. And then it thrusts us, it sort of backtracks and explains how we got to this, which is it's the last day of school, just like the last one was, right? The first paintball. And the dean, he's got his like Daisy Dukes outfit on. He's addressing the student body, and they've partnered with some kind of like ice cream company or something. Big anthropomorphic ice cream, like a sort of, like Disney World kind of character, but it's a big ice cream cone, comes up and announces that they're going to have another paintball game, just like last time, but don't worry, it's not going to get out of hand because we're not going to make the stakes something that's, gonna make everybody turn on themselves. Right. And then he proceeds to announce that the stakes are $100,000 in cash.
Right.
And then the funniest thing to me about these paintball episodes is just the concept that, they mention it later, it's been 2 hours. The idea that the campus just immediately turns into this post-apocalyptic wasteland dystopia.
Right. And all of them. And what's so fun about it is, like, in this case, the end of year picnic was cowboy theme, like Western theme. So they're all in their Western costumes. Troy is wearing, did you catch the Blazing Saddles outfit? He's wearing the same outfit as the sheriff in Blazing Saddles. And Jeff is wearing his same cool cowboy guy outfit that he wore in the zombie episode from the Halloween episode.
Interesting.
It's the same outfit.
We're going to meet later the Black Rider, who's going to be the sort of wild card in this. He, I thought, looked just like Val Kilmer in Tombstone.
Okay.
He plays Doc Holliday, and he's this like tall, thin guy with the black coat and the hat. I mean, they've all got the hats. But yeah, I feel like they are all referencing different characters or different tropes. They make their way to Pierce's saloon, right? Chevy Chase as Pierce.
Fort Hawthorne.
Yeah, I don't know if Deadwood was going on at this time, but I definitely get a Deadwood vibe.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like Gem Saloon.
From Deadwood,
is that from Deadwood?
Yeah, the Gem. Yeah, that's what it is, because that show is all about this sort of like nefarious bar owner who kind of is in a lawless town. He's almost like the closest thing they have to an authority, and that is the role that Pierce is playing here. They have one of the hapless fellow students. She's like dancing on the table or whatever. He's like, "You guys want to check out a show?"
Exactly. Vicky, who, and then he's like, and if she's not your speed, we've got, Jeff, because he's always like making fun of Jeff and calling him gay and stuff. He's like, Jeff, we got somebody that's more your speed. And then you see Garrett over there doing his little dance. Garrett, by the way, we've been watching on Jeopardy this past season. He was a regular competitor last year and then was on the Second Chance.
It was bizarre.
And we were like, when he was on we watch Jeopardy all the time. So when he came on, I was like, that's the guy from Community.
Yes,
and
very
then he
distinctive.
He mentioned in his little interview with Ken that, he, does live in LA and he's a comedian, kind of sort of a little bit of an actor, but he didn't say anything about being in Community. And I'm like, how is he not mentioning like the only thing I've ever seen him in?
Yeah. So Pierce has a proposition for them, which is, I want you guys to help me obtain this cache of ammunition, right? This episode's going to be all about the sort of ammunition. These paintballs are like the currency of this world because they only have so much. And
and so in this time, right, like the way it was all set up was that this game wasn't going to be as bad because they were only going to be able to use pistols. They were only going to be able to use these 6-shooters instead of like the automatic paintball guns that they were using in Modern Warfare, which was last season's episode. And so, and they only had a certain amount of ammunition and all of this stuff. And the gang has all been fractured. Like, Pierce has this Fort Hawthorne and Britta and Troy and Shirley kind of are on his team, and Abed and Jeff had their own little alliance, and Chang was with them, and Annie was out on her own. She was a lone wolf. And so slowly through the beginning of this episode, like you said, they kind of all come together and, they don't want to be a part of whatever Pierce has going on, because throughout this season, he's been the villain.
Yeah.
He has, they make mention of it multiple times, but there was an earlier episode this season where they play Dungeons and Dragons, and Pierce opts to like rape a family as one of his choices in that game. And so, he's like, how have I been a villain this season? And Abed's like, you raped the Duquesne family. What are you talking about? So there's all of these things, and he's just been a general asshole throughout this season. And so they are not really interested in working with him, and they confront him about being a villain. He's like, I'm not a villain. You need to go, like, you do this for me and we'll all be okay. And so they have this meeting at the table. He has got the study room table from the library. He's brought it into Fort Hawthorne, and he is sitting in Jeff's position. Did you notice that? They always all sit in the same places, but Pierce and Jeff have swapped places because this is Fort Hawthorne. Pierce is establishing his dominance by sitting in Jeff's seat.
But they do go on this quest to find this cache of ammunition.
Yeah, they decide to give him one last benefit of the doubt.
And so this is where they meet the Black Rider, right? He's this mysterious gunman.
They've already met him. So Jeff and Abed rescue Annie from him in the first place, or the other way around, something like that. They run away from him.
Yeah.
And when they're running away from him, that's how they run into Shirley and Troy and Britta at the very beginning. So they already know he's there, and they are they're like, who is this guy? And they're like, oh yeah, we all call him the Black Rider. And they're like, but he's not a student here, right? And they're like, I don't know, maybe, whatever. He says he goes to night school, so okay. And so they're just kind of like, nobody knows who he is, so they're just sort of chalking it up to night school. But then he finds them when they're on their way to get the ammunition. Yeah. And he and Annie have this very sexy moment, and then Abed comes in and saves her.
Yeah, they have this big, it's just a big action sequence. This is where I thought the Russos are really pulling from John Woo here, even though it's an action scene. The John Woo directorial technique is where you get things like the guys sort of diving sideways and shooting their gun a bunch of times and flicking the little reloader thing with their other hand. The Black Rider does the thing of sort of twirling around 360 degrees and shooting as he does it. I feel like that stuff was right out of the John Woo movies in the early 2000s. And yeah, they get away from him, right? And they find the armory in the dean's closet.
Yeah, they shoot him. They take him out. And so he and Annie are, he confronts Annie, and Annie's like, oh, I'm going to get you. And then she has Jeff's gun, and she shoots and, goes to get a shot off, and it's loaded with blanks. So that's how they realize that Pierce has double-crossed them. And they're like, hey, Pierce loaded your gun with blanks. We need to really confront him and have a real conversation now, because he wasn't trying to make nice like he said he was. They do get away from him because it's Pierce that shoots him, right?
Yeah, Pierce gets him with the fake heart attack routine.
Right, exactly. So yeah, they get away from him. They find the weapons. They go back to confront Pierce, and the whole fort has been destroyed by the Black Rider.
Yeah, we also get the Rider tells them this. They say something like,
this is after Pierce shoots him, after the fake heart attack, and he's out now. The Black Rider's out.
And he sort of drops his act a little bit, he's not as mysterious. And he says that he was sent there by his boss, right? And so they're like, what do you mean? You were sent here by the ice cream truck? And he says, this thing is bigger than you could possibly imagine.
Right. And then he pieces out.
Yeah, and that's basically where the episode ends. We get the reveal that this ice cream company sort of like backs up a truck and like unloads a team of mercenaries, right, that are going to come in. And I had to check the date.
They look
here.
like stormtroopers.
Yes, they look like stormtroopers, but my initial thought on this was that this particular plot turn was a play on The Purge, because the Purge movies, especially the later ones, all have this premise, and this is why they're so sort of like politically potent, is the premise is like, oh, the Purge is totally like laissez-faire, we just do nothing and let everybody, rich or poor, just do whatever they want. But the reality is they're sending mercenaries into the streets to exterminate the poor people. And so I was like, oh, that's what this is. But then I looked, and the first Purge movie came out in 2013, and this was 2011. So it's not that. Yeah.
No. Well, so what we didn't talk about, though, is that in the final confrontation with Pierce, before he fakes the heart attack and shoots the Black Rider, he says, you guys were playing cards without me.
Yeah.
That, like, you're always excluding me. What's up with that? I'm not a villain. You guys are jerks. You always leave me out. And they're like, we leave you out because you're a villain. And he's like, no, you were playing cards. And it finally comes to light that they weren't playing cards without him. They were taking a vote on what they were doing. And the reason each of them has like the, Queen of Clubs, the King of Clubs, Ace of Spades, King of Spades, whatever, Jack of Spades. The reason they all have that is because the black cards meant they were voting Pierce out of the group, and they weren't going to allow him. They weren't going to invite him back to the study group next season. Mm-hmm. And the only holdout was Annie. She had a red card. She was the Ace of Hearts.
Yes, and they said that it had to be unanimous, so she was the one that kept him from getting ejected from the group. And so, yes, everything is this wasteland now. There are very few of the students left at this point. So many of them have been killed beyond our main cast. And so that's when we get the truck unveiling the team of mercenaries. That's the end of the first part of this. The second episode picks up with this big ice cream cone character revealing himself to the dean to be, in fact, Stephen Sprick, the rival dean from City College, right? Who's very much a sort of bizarro dean. He's got that same sort of vaguely androgynous kind of way about him. Yeah. And he's got that he's got that same sort of like, I'm your worst nightmare kind of like, or that's the attitude he takes towards the dean.
Right. Whereas Dean, our Greendale dean, right, is more like joyful and silly and whatever. This dean is evil in that same way.
He means business. And so in the cold open, before it even goes to the credits, they start, infiltrating the school with these mercenaries dressed in the white outfits. And I noticed when they're looking for like students to shoot, and one of them says, there's one, in that sort of like, walkie kind of voice. And I was like, that is a lift from Star Wars. Like literally, I think they took the sound bite of one of the stormtroopers saying there's one about like the Ewoks or whatever, because it sounded just like it. And then sure enough, the opening credits goes to, instead of the Saul Bass Western motif, it's the Star Wars crawl.
Yes. And they do the thing of like making it short. They're like, but we won't make this too long because, the Star Wars crawl does go on.
Yeah. And so the students that are still alive, quote unquote, are gathered in one of the classrooms, right? And Abed acknowledges, we started off with a Western thing, but now it's sort of mutated into more of a Star Wars motif.
Yes.
And then he says, I want to be Han Solo, dibs on Han Solo. And his thing throughout the episode is he literally wears the black vest, the exact outfit.
Yeah, he takes Starburns' vest, because Starburns always wears that sort of black, leathery, brownish vest. So he takes Starburns' vest and he does the whole like smoldering Han Solo thing throughout this episode.
Basically, everything he says in the entire episode is a direct quote or a very slight paraphrase of Han Solo dialogue from one of the Star Wars movies.
And he directs it kind of specifically at Annie.
Oh, yeah.
And Annie's like, oh, it's so mature. I don't want to play Star Wars with you. Leave me alone. And that's how she starts, kind of very hostile and like, go away. But within like a couple of scenes, his like oozing charisma wins her over. And she's just like, ah! I'll play along.
She like falls in love with, Han Solo-esque Abed.
Right.
What happens in this sort of planning scene as they're trying to figure out like what to do, and Jeff and Troy have different ideas for what their plan should be, a little sort of remote probe rolls in that they realize is like basically a paint grenade that's about to explode. And so one of these minor characters, of the nerdy guy,
not the
jumps
nerdy guy.
on it.
It's the class president, Magnitude. Pop.
Okay.
And he saves himself. He saves the whole.
He sacrifices himself.
Yeah, he sacrifices us. He jumps over it and takes the hit of the entire paint grenade.
Yeah. We get they have like a little model campus that they're using to try to plan out like what their attack is going to be, which is very funny. They have like a toilet paper roll that they've made into the gym. I noticed just all the little sort of makeshift things. Our buddy Garrett, the Jeopardy guy, gets a funny moment when they're sneaking around, they're splitting up into groups,
so
doing their plan.
Two plans. Yeah. So they have two plans. There's this whole like back and forth between Jeff and Troy about who's going to be the leader. And if you notice, Troy has taken off his shirt that he had on. Now he's in a wife beater. He looks much more like Lando Calrissian now. And
who he would play in a movie.
Exactly. Later on. And then Jeff is doing his whole like, kind of laid back, just waiting for authority to be thrust upon him. And Troy's trying to take charge. And so the two of them are like both playing out these tropes of who's going to be the hero of this movie kind of a thing. And then, and they come up with competing plans.
Yeah.
Jeff says the stronghold for City College is the fact that they have a Gatling gun in a ice cream truck in the parking lot. So that's how, like, no matter what, they're going to be the last one standing because you can't get close to them for that. We're going to have to bum rush that thing, sacrifice people, and take that over to get the strong position.
Terrifying in the same way that real war is terrifying. And one of the characters mentions that, the really old guy.
Leonard,
when he's, they're like hiding behind something and he goes, I've been in a few real wars and this is far more terrifying.
He's like, this is scarier. And then Troy's plan is to use his excellent plumbing abilities, which we've just found out about in season 2, which will later play into a whole storyline going on. But he's like, I'm going to use my excellent plumbing abilities and I'm going to rig the sprinkler system in the school. So we just need to draw every single one of these, stormtroopers into the school, so that way we'll trigger the fire alarm, the sprinklers will come on, and everybody will get soaked with paint because the sprinklers will be rigged with paint. And Annie, the two of them are arguing, like, which plan is better. Annie's like, we need to do both plans. You take so she ends up being like the general, and they each have their own battalions, and they go and execute each plan.
It must be part of Troy's plan where Garrett tries to sneak into the ventilation system.
No, they all are. So the Troy's plan is that the way they survive and don't get soaked by the paint in the sprinkler system is that they escaped through the ventilation system. That's how they're all going to get out.
Yeah.
But Garrett tries to go first and gets stuck, so now nobody can get out.
He says, I may be stuck in this vent. It's too early to tell.
Right. Exactly. So, so Troy's plan has failed because Garrett has blocked their only exit. So now the only way they can get out before the sprinkler system gets pulled is to shoot their way out. But they've lured they've lured everybody except the guys manning the Gatling gun into the library. So they're trapped and there's not many of them. So they're trying to shoot their way out. This is where we have like the last scene with Abed and Annie. And he's like, once those sprinklers go off, baby, this guy's gone. So take advantage of it now or whatever. And so they have this big kiss and she's like, at the end as they're getting soaked with orange paint. Shirley is on the outside. She's gonna she's the only one of the team on the inside of the school that's not in the library. She pulls the fire alarm and then runs out. while the rest of the team outside is getting completely annihilated because they're having a hard time bum rushing the truck because that gun is so powerful.
Yeah, we get more references here. I think that, when you see the outdoor side of it, when they're basically enacting Jeff's plan of like, okay, we're going to have to rush. Like, everybody just run towards the gun. Most of us will die, but hopefully one of us or a few of us will make it. This is where Jeff himself gets killed, quote unquote, and a bunch of them. But
he's like, I'll see you guys all later at Denny's.
Yeah.
And then he gets shot, a few minutes later, and he looks down at Britta, who's the only one left, and she's like, I'll see you at Denny's. And he's like, Denny's is for winners.
Yeah.
And he storms off.
He goes, there's somewhere where we're all going to be together when this is done. Denny's.
And that place is Denny's. And Leonard's like, wait, which Denny's? He's like, well, figure it out later, Leonard.
Yeah. Well, Leonard goes, it can't be the one off the interstate because I'm banned from there.
Oh, and Leonard has another great line in this sequence because when Jeff's describing the plan, Leonard goes, somebody goes, what are we, the little rascals? And Leonard's like, I was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the plan to get the sprinklers to go paint on them. But during this scene where they're all just getting picked off and riddled with paintballs, and to me it was very reminiscent of Saving Private Ryan, where you get the sort of slow motion, like all the sound drops out, and you just see like the person sort of hiding behind the sandbag or whatever and just looking around, and there's one friend getting killed, and there's another friend getting killed, and everything's kind of in slow motion. And then meanwhile, Troy is inside. I think he gets caught in the sprinkler thing.
Everybody gets caught in the sprinkler thing.
He drops to his knees, and they have the shot like Platoon. It's like the poster of Platoon, where it's like shot from behind, and he falls to his knees and spreads out his arm, and
bang, bang, bang,
just
bang,
riddled with paint.
Yeah,
and
because he's trying to shoot his way out, and he's leading the charge, and he knows he's not going to make it, but whatever, he's going to do what he can, and he's just trying to distract all those guys long enough for Shirley to get to pull the fire alarm and get out of the building.
Yeah.
So Shirley's the only one left from the inside people, and Britta's the only one left from the outside people. What we haven't mentioned in all of this, right, is that, at the end of the first half of this, Pierce fakes a heart attack, shoots the, Dark Rider or whatever, and then gets captured by, in this part of the episode, or in this second half of the episode, he gets captured by the mercenaries. He convinces them not to kill him because he wants to give them information on Jeff.
Yeah, he's like, I hate Jeff. I'll be on your side. Not unlike Woody in the Bar Wars,
That's right.
The secret double, triple agent or whatever.
That's right.
I'm also noticing, like, I didn't even make the connection that this whole thing with the two plans is a reference to Star Wars. Like, the Star Wars endings, particularly Return of the Jedi, is always like you've got the one team on the ground and they're fighting the stormtroopers and they have to get into the thing to disable the shield. And then you have the other team that's flying around in the, fighters and having the dogfight in the sky. And then you have Luke Skywalker is doing his like one-on-one sword fight with Darth Vader or whatever. And so, even that is sort of playing on the Star Wars
multiple
thing.
Levels. Interesting.
Exactly.
So Pierce gives the other dean all this information. It's useless. And the dean is, going out for he realizes that everybody's dead. He hears about the paint and the light, like the whole school being covered in paint. He hears that they're down to, one person basically outside. So he's like, I'm going to go celebrate victory with my guys, kill this guy. And then Pierce fakes another heart attack and kills the guy that's supposed to kill him. And then it cuts. We don't know what happens.
Exactly.
We get this great action sequence again with Shirley in this like friar's outfit.
Yes. I just thought it was like a nun's thing, but whatever it is. Yeah. With the little gold cross and stuff. And she's on a golf cart and pulls the like classic action movie thing of like Britta's, backed into a corner. She's got nowhere to go. All is lost.
So get in.
Yeah. And then she, rolls up. Come on, get in. And then they think they win, but they don't.
Right. They charge the Gatling gun ice cream truck with this golf cart, and the golf cart has a windshield. So they're shooting out the sides of it at the guys who are coming coming, out of the woodwork to get them. And they do like a 360 spin in the golf cart. And then Britta takes one. And so it's just Shirley left, and it's her and the one guy in the van, in the ice cream truck. And she gets a shot off, and that guy gets a shot off, and she hits him in the face first. And so she doesn't get hit. And she's like, yeah, we won, and woohoo. And she's celebrating. And then 3 more guys come out of the ice cream truck, shoot her. And it's like, oh no, this sucks. Oh no. And then one of the guys who comes from outside, or comes from like he was somewhere in the bushes or whatever, he joins the 2 guys that have come out of the ice cream truck.
One of the fellow mercenaries.
Right. And he's just like, yeah, all right, we did it. Woohoo. High five, high five. And then shoots each of them. And they're like, what the hell? What the hell? And he takes off his helmet, and we see it's Pierce. And he's like, that's right, losers. Greendale won. I win.
What
Greendale's getting the money.
When they still have their helmets on, and they realize they don't recognize this guy, they go, wait, who are you? And he goes, your mother's lover. And then he shoots them. So yeah, thanks to Pierce, Greendale wins.
Right.
And Pierce even does what they had mentioned before and says he's going to donate all the money to Greendale. And so he really is the hero of this.
Which, and I'm not sure if we know this already, just or if I am knowing this from later seasons, but Pierce goes to this school in the first place. The reason he keeps getting signed up for classes is that he is a major donor. The dean wants him always going to classes because he's always giving them money.
Interesting. We get, now that the war is over, Abed sheds his Han Solo thing. And when Annie is like, oh, but Abed, he goes, cool down, Annie. I was only Han Solo because the context demanded it.
Right. She's like, right, Han? And he's like, no.
Yeah. And so the end of this, is this actually the last we see of Pierce? Because they really make a meal of this thing.
No, it isn't.
Okay. I know at some point he departed the show, but not this early. They're back at the study room. The campus is still destroyed. And they're ready to sort of accept him, and he basically rejects them. He says, I'm done with whatever this is, right? And he leaves.
He has this whole little monologue about how, he's been going to the school for 8 years, and they're all like, what do you mean 8 years? So maybe they don't know yet. Maybe that does come out in the next season, that he's like this major donor. But so they're like, he's like, I've been going to the school for 8 years or 7 years or whatever. I never have been friends with anybody the way that, I've been friends with you guys. Anytime I get close to anybody, I sort of push them away because, I don't want them to leave me. And that's probably why I've been married so many times. And so he has this whole realization about his own personality. But he's like, and they're like, oh, great. Well, we decided we're going to think about a class, and we decided we want you to pick the class. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm done with whatever this is.
Yeah. And so, I really thought maybe he's just never coming back. They sort of present it like that. I even wonder if they were keeping that option open, because this is a season finale.
It could be. That's not in the chatter about it. But obviously
famously they did not get along.
Chevy Chase and Dan Harmon did not get along. There's this whole thing now about the Chevy Chase documentary that recently came out. Not a single person from Community agreed to be in the documentary. No one would talk to the guy. No one would be interviewed.
Yes, he is notoriously a dick.
But and that's including the cast. You know what I mean? We know there was the public feud that he and Dan Harmon had, but the cast was just very much I'm not getting involved. I don't have nice things to say about this man, or I don't have anything to say about this man, so I'm just not going to even contribute to his documentary, even though there were plenty of people who contributed to his documentary that were like, yeah, he's a dick.
Yeah. Look, the fact that this is only the second of 6 or 7 of these paintball episodes?
Yes and no, right? So, Community is a little bit different on this, right? They realized that it was going to get old if they did paintball every single year. So they did season 1, and they did this 2-parter in season 2, and we're not going to get another true paintball until the series finale.
Oh, okay.
So we've got a flashback of paintball in season 3, and then I think in season 4, there's a daydream of paintball, so we get part of an episode that's paintball. But in lieu of those, what they did in some of the other seasons were these other major epic kind of movie amalgam send-ups. They did mini movie send-ups all the time, and genre send-ups all the time. But what we're going to see, we're definitely going to talk about going forward when we do the next round of these next year. We will talk about the flashback, the paintball flashback that happens in season 3. But in season 3, they do a Floor is Lava game.
Oh, yeah.
That is, and it has that same sort of epic feel. And so I think we're going to look at that instead. Floor is Lava is season 5. And then they also do a pillow fight. They do the pillow versus blanket forts. And like have an epic pillow fight in the pillow versus blanket forts. And so I think we should include those two as part of this series of these like epic genre send-ups that they do.
Yeah, it makes sense that they switched it up like that, because what I was going to say is I don't see how they could top this. I mean, the fact that it's a 2-parter that does so much with that Western thing and then the Star Wars thing, it's like they really would have their work cut out for them to figure out how to make something, because this is, more grandeur than the first paintball thing. And so there's a point where you just you can't go any further with it. But like we said, this just has such a good time with this concept, the idea that in a matter of hours the campus has become this wasteland, and just the way that they touch on so many different elements of the genre, like I was saying, the Doc Holliday thing from Tombstone and all the Star Wars stuff and everything, that they work in, those John Woo sort of gun ballet elements of it, everything. It's just like very incredible and very funny.
Do it in 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. We watched the zombie episode where it was just a singular episode. They did all of that in the 20 minutes or 22 minutes. This is a 2-parter, but they do a Western and Star Wars, Yeah.
Like it benefits, from that nonlinear thing of starting in the middle and then having a flashback. And so it just kind of like gives you that momentum from the very start, so you don't have to be like, well, it started one day.
No, and we say this, I think I say this every single time we talk about Community. It is no wonder that, these Russo brothers went on to do such amazing things with Marvel. Like I said at the beginning, this series of episodes, these two, is the one, is it Kevin Feige?
Kevin Feige.
Feige is, this is what, he saw this and he was like, we need to get these guys for Winter Soldier. And I don't think I've ever seen Winter Soldier. Are there elements of this? Like, is it a big war thing?
Well, the Winter Soldier in particular is the one that everybody liked because it sort of scaled down and took on the trappings of like a 70s political thriller, like the 3 Days of the Condor or something. And that was just sort of a cool vibe for one of those movies. And then, they continued directing the later Avengers movies and everything. They made, I feel like, half a dozen of those Marvel movies that all had different sort of things going on.
Yeah.
All right. So much for Community. Let's move on to How I Met Your Mother.
So this is the second installment of our Slap Bet series. This is season 2, episode 16, Stuff.
Right. So we just got done talking about a set of episodes that used every second of its 44-minute running time to totally suck the marrow and really dive into their, their recurring contest or whatever.
And genre send-up as well. They've got good content of story, right? They are bringing us back into it is a season finale, so that's why. They were bringing us back into the arc of the season, which is Chevy Chase being the villain, Pierce being the villain throughout the season. And now we're moving into How I Met Your Mother, which, yes, this is a recurring joke that's going on. But the reason I think this one was one of my favorite episodes was because you don't know the whole time that it's coming. It's so unexpected. It literally slaps you in the face.
It's total opposite. It is, quite literally the last seconds of the episode. It just sneaks up on you. And so, I think it absolutely fits the trope and is a sort of opposite way of approaching it. But in terms of screen time devoted to the trope at hand, this may be the lowest we've ever had. This is like 5 seconds of the episode devoted to the trope.
Yes, and if you remember back to our first installment of these long-running bits, the very first Slap Bet episode is also the Robin Sparkles episode.
Yes.
So you have a completely separate storyline that does tie into this Slap Bet, which is what becomes the long-running thing. But also, Robin Sparkles is a long-running gag that they play.
Yes,
gag.
definitely.
It's a long-running thing that they play out through the show.
Yes.
We have multiple videos of Robin Sparkles. We have an appearance of Dawson, James Vanderbeek, who plays her like Canadian ex-boyfriend, former rock star, partner, lover from back in the day when she was a teen pop star, and he was so cool, and now he's like this loser. So you have all of this stuff kind of going on and recurring throughout the years. But this has nothing to do with Robin Sparkles.
Yeah.
Just a completely different storyline.
Yeah. And so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about this story beat by beat because, like we're saying, it doesn't really fit into our trope. But there are some interesting topics here. The A story of this is going to be, it starts out with, that old thing, Ted and Robin are a couple now. We're at that part of the series.
Yeah, they're totally nesting.
Yes.
They're, always staying over at each other's houses, very comfortable with each other.
Yeah. And so Ted is doing the thing of, oh, hey, remember the time we did this? Remember the time that happened? And it turns out that was with another girl.
Oh my God, I do this to Jay all the time.
Every time he has to say, that was with my sister or whatever. And so it's sort of, they try to get everything out in the open of, oh, hey, look, we're adults. We've had other boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. But it eventually becomes this conflict that they have to take to the rest of their group because Ted has all of these possessions that he's accumulated from past girlfriends, right?
There's
Robin,
lots of tchotchkes around his apartment that it's just decor, like a lamp and a little, miniature
moisturizer.
phone booth,
Robin
right?
does not like moisturizing with another woman's moisturizer.
Nope, I wouldn't either.
And so, she wants Ted to get rid of all this stuff. He says that's not fair. They bring it to the group to help them adjudicate. So what's your feeling on this? To what extent does it bother you if your lover has possessions from former lovers?
Okay, that's the last time you're going to use that word in this episode. I know I said it a minute ago. I have the thing that Lily has about moist with the word lover. I just don't like it.
To quote Tina Fey, I only approve of that word when it's in between meat and pizza.
There you go. Yeah. Well, that's so interesting. Okay. So I was going to ask you the same thing, right? Because I don't care. But the reason I don't care is because in our situation, I'm the one who's had a ton of past relationships and you've had only a handful.
And you were married.
Right.
And so that's, what I would say is that I think this is something that makes more sense for younger people, like in this episode.
Yeah.
We are significantly older than Ted and Robin.
Yeah, 20 years older about. They're going on 30, we're going on 50.
So by the time you get to this stage in life, yes, one of us has been married before, but the ultimate example is if you're a step-parent, which neither of us are, talk about, this isn't your ex-boyfriend's box of tissues. This is a child with their genetic code.
Right.
You're literally looking at a human extension of this other person that they sired them and named them and in some cases raised them. And so
and that's why stuff is way easier to deal with.
Right. So I'm just saying that, by the time you're really an adult, a lot of people have to deal with situations where you have to let go of those kinds of jealousies or else you truly will drive yourself crazy.
Yeah. And they get close to it, right? Because the first instance of this, going to the group to try to adjudicate this relationship dispute is about the things, the tchotchkes, the decor in the apartment, right? The second instance, it comes to light about midway through the episode that, Robin's like, I never keep anything from my exes, whatever. But guess what? She's got 5 dogs. Every one of her dogs has been given to her by an ex. And so then Ted gets all like, wait a minute, I had to get rid of all my stuff. You got to get rid of your dogs. And immediately the group group comes down on Robin's side in both instances. Ted, you need to get rid of all your junk that is from ex-girlfriends because that's weird. Why do you have it all over the house? And on the second instance, no, Robin does not have to get rid of her dogs. They're living things.
Yes, getting rid of the dogs was ridiculous, which she does sort of do on a trial basis. She gives them to her aunt or whatever. That is not something I could get behind at all.
Well, and the group sides with her and says she doesn't have to do it, but Ted has such an issue with it.
It's a funny visual bit where he imagines these 5 like bro-y guys sitting around her apartment in place of all the dogs. But yeah, look, what I'll say is, on the one hand, I have not many, but I definitely have quite a few. I have a few possessions that were given to me by former lovers.
God, stop it. Wait, I don't know these things. Tell me what things.
I've told mostly books, like my little Tim Burton Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy that I like to keep as
hiding
a sort
that
of
starting today. Yep, it's coming off the shelf.
As a sort of bric-a-brac thing was given to me by my ex-girlfriend. Little things like that. I think to me it's a matter of, not only being older, but just having a totally clear conscience about that stuff.
Yeah.
The person who gave me this is someone who I still have great affection for, but our relationship was decades ago. She lives in another state. She has children. Like, it's just not at all a thing that would ever cross my mind of like, oh, I'm keeping this because, oh, well, hey, you never know.
You never know.
The one area where I would side with Robin, where I would draw the line, is clothing. I would not I don't like to even wear your dad's clothes. To me, wearing somebody else's clothing has an intimacy to it, no matter how many times it's been washed or whatever. And so I don't know necessarily about, I think it could be a sort of don't ask, don't tell in terms of like the stuff that you wear. But what drives Robin crazy is Ted's sweatshirt that she's been wearing.
Like her favorite sweatshirt of Ted's.
He says that was given to him by a girlfriend. And I would not like the idea of wearing something that had been worn by a former partner.
Well, but see, the idea of it was given to him.
I know. I realize that, but still, you got to think they probably may have had the same dynamic where she would wear it as like a boyfriend shirt because, Robin's wearing it. In any case, that's the one area where I still might be a little sensitive or a little ooged out by the idea of this has been worn by another person.
Ted makes the argument, though, which I think is relatively sound, especially, with hindsight and like you were saying, us being so much older. The argument that Ted makes is that I don't look at these things and think about, oh man, my relationship with this person, wasn't it so nice when, they gave me this thing? I remember that I was in London and I really enjoyed, I thought it was so cool. They had all these little phone booths. And so I wanted one of those things. And it just so happened that she got it for me as a present, and I don't think about her when I see it. I think about my trip to London.
Yeah.
Same thing with the lamp. I think about being, I really needed a lamp. I needed some light in that little tiny space and I didn't have anything. And she noticed that, got it for me. And that's great. But I would have purchased a lamp for that space, whether or not the girlfriend I happened to have at the time noticed that I wanted one.
Yeah, exactly. The more you live, you accumulate things in all kinds of ways. And the truth is, I probably have possessions that I don't even really remember were given to me by my ex-girlfriend because it just, it's a lot of birthdays and Christmases and stuff. And maybe that person gave you that nice mug or something. And I don't even recall it.
My favorite sort of like adjacent incident, not even incident, but occurrence of this in our relationship is the very flowery, well-preserved and displayed framed picture you have of you and your prom date, who is also still a really good friend.
Yes, because that was a platonic prom date in the first place. But it is kind of funny that, like, you and I don't have pictures in flowery frames like that.
Not at all.
We have
pictures. Found it in Jay's closet at some point when, I don't know, early in our dating. And I was like, what is this picture of you and Alyssa? And he's like, oh, that's from prom. I think she gave it to me as a joke.
Well, my mom still wanted to have a nice picture of us.
Oh, is that what was actually from your parents' house?
I think so. I don't remember exactly.
I don't know why I've always been like, oh, Alyssa gave that to you as a joke. Like, remember us being nerds?
I don't think it was a joke. We all took pictures before the prom, just like everybody. But my version of that, which sort of shows how unjealous I am, was that I took the liberty of decorating your home office recently because you had neglected to do so after 6 months of living here.
Yes, with pictures of my ex.
I thought your psyche might benefit from having a nice, organized office. And so I hung up these 2 photo collages you have, aware that one of them, I didn't know about the other one, but that at least one of them had a picture of your ex in a group picture among all these other pictures. And my logic was, well, look, you hung on to these all these years, so you must want them up, you must want them to be used as decorating for some reason. And it frankly didn't bother me at all. It bothers you more than it bothers me to have this guy. Yeah, look, to bring it back to How I Met Your Mother, the idea, when you think about it, Robin has this objection to, I can't stand to be in a room with like a little model phone booth from your ex-girlfriend. But later in the show, she's going to switch romantic partners from Ted to Barney.
Yes.
If you ask me, if you're, inclined to those sort of sensitivities or jealousy, the idea that you're hanging out, sitting across the bar from somebody who is sleeping with your partner for years, that would be much more difficult than knowing that, they got you that cereal box.
Oh, absolutely. And it is difficult for Ted later on. Yeah. So we also find out this is a fun little like deep dive into How I Met Your Mother. In season 8, we find out when Barney and Robin are falling in love the final time, that Barney is the one that went with Robin over the weekend to take her dogs to her aunt's.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yes. We don't know that at this point.
No, this is, I'm sure they don't mention it at all. It all happens off screen. But they do retcon that in later on, that Barney has kind of always been like this emotional support and has always been there. You can see in scenes during this episode, Neil Patrick Harris already laying the groundwork for his adoration of Robin.
Interesting. Well, yeah. So that's sort of arguably the A story, but then the story that's at least a little bit more connected to our slap bet is that Lily comes to the bar handing out flyers for her play, right? We know Lily has
Talk about another storyline that resonates with me, right?
We know that Lily has kind of an artsy-fartsy background, but she's not really an actor per se.
No, she's an artist.
Yes, her friend asked her to be in this play, and so, Barney kind of scoffs when she gives him the flyer. He says, "We're not in college, and I'm not trying to sleep with you, so why would I go to this play?"
Yeah, friends don't ask friends to go to their shitty plays.
Right.
And which I immediately got my back up. I'm like, what do you mean? But he's not wrong. Like there's a certain thing in the city where there are people who are working to try to get their plays seen and like new plays seen and heard. And we want to support artists 100%. And I don't want to go to some drafty warehouse in the middle of nowhere that's an 8th floor walk up and watch your weird art piece with a gong where no one's saying anything and it looks like one of those Saturday Night Live sketches of high school theater.
Yes. And this is actually an area where even though you are the theater person between the two of us and you do shows all the time.
Yeah, this is so much more your scene.
Yeah, I actually think that I have more experience with this because I have a lot of friends who are in the theater world and not so much musicals. It is more like these kinds of plays, which is a little black box theater and some, I think the good ones, the ones that they're sort of aspiring to be are like Edward Albee's Zoo Story and other plays like that. Various. I was in one of the few times I did act on stage was a 1-act festival. In college, I was in this short play called The Philadelphia by David Ives, which isn't really like this, but I remember one of the other shows has got to be what they're sort of referencing in this. For the life of me, I cannot remember what it was called or who wrote it, but it was like 3 or 4 people that were supposed to be like aliens dressed in black with like white makeup, and it was called like Bim Bam Bong or something like that. And then the other thing this reminds me of, again, a one-act festival that you were in where the play that you did was actually a fun one that was not like this at all. But there was one of these one-act plays that was this young man and this older woman having this dialogue the whole time about how he's kind of like abusive or whatever, and she's suffered for a long time. And then the play ends with them shaking hands, and he goes, "I'm humankind." And she goes, "Nice to meet you. I'm Mother Earth." Blackout, and I'll be damned if this was not the most reluctant applause I have ever heard. You could hear every single person in that audience making the mental calculation of like, can I, in good conscience, deny these actors the applause? Will it make me feel better or worse to have applauded what I just saw?
I have to say, though, you'll note I did not invite anyone to that show. Like, you invited your dad, which was very sweet, and you guys came, but like, I didn't ask anybody I know to come see that.
But your play was fun. There are absolutely non-musical plays, one acts or whatever, that are good, and even ones that are experimental. But it's just like anything. For every good one, it inspires 100 crappy imitators. Right. And so, yes, this show in this black box theater that Lily invites them to is a dead-on parody of these kinds of pretentious nonsense modern theater things where you have three people in black turtlenecks going, "I am rage. Yes. I am greed. Yes. I am envy." And then one of them, "This is the face of consumerism." And so it ends. The gang all applauds except for Neil Patrick Harris, Barney, who says it sucked, and he says it so blithely that was like, what? I mean, we're friends, aren't we supposed to be nice to each other, or rather, aren't we supposed to be honest with each other? And Lily's like, no, you're supposed to be nice, which granted is something that I have sort of learned over my life. When I was younger, I was never as mean as Barney, but I did kind of think like, particularly if they were, people that I respected intellectually, it's like, oh, well then, you tell them the ups and downs. You tell, oh, that wasn't the best one or whatever. Right. And now I've been a little bit more like sure, you can engage with criticism eventually, but particularly in those moments immediately following some sort of performance, you have to just, you have to just.
You guys were having fun up there.
Yeah. It's almost like the thing of just like, the hug and kiss when you see someone you haven't seen in a long time. It's just like what keeps the thing flowing without creating some sort of like discomfort.
Exactly. I think we talked about it on the podcast before, but there's a story about Jason Robert Brown, who is a Broadway composer, and he was young and up and coming, and he had been invited by Stephen Sondheim to come see a workshop or a recent show that he was trying to get off the ground or whatever, and he wanted to look like he had good taste, so he wanted to like engage in a real conversation with Stephen Sondheim. And Stephen Sondheim wrote him, as he's famous for, writing letters later on. He's like, I didn't invite you to, for you to have taste. I invited you to say good job, thank you, for coming, and that's what you should do, because that's why you're there. You're there to say nice work. I have other people to tell me what needs work, and in fact, I probably know what needs work.
Yeah, and again, I feel like hours later when you're having drinks or whatever, you can start to approach like, well, what about this? Like that part I didn't quite get or whatever. And I think that's totally legit. But Barney says, all right, Lily, I'm going to make you eat your words. You're saying that if I did a show, you would be nice to me no matter what. You would compliment me no matter what.
And Lily says, absolutely, I would.
Yes. And he says, okay, challenge accepted. And the next day, he's handing out flyers for his play. He tells them it's terrible and excruciatingly long. He says, make sure you bring a poncho. The first few rows are the splash zone.
Yes.
And, they report to what seems like the same black box theater.
Yes.
Hilariously, there are a handful of other random people there. It's just like, hey, it's New York City. Somebody's always going to show up to whatever whatever weird thing this is, which, by the way, has not been my experience with some of my friends' black box
It's
shows.
just you.
I have been essentially the only person there, me and the playwright. But yeah, we see on the programs that the extras are holding in the background that the play is called Suck It, Lily.
Yes.
And yes, Neil Patrick Harris, who of course is a very accomplished theatrical presence himself, does this dead on. If the first play was a great parody of these pretentious little one acts, this is even better, where he's got the eyeliner, get black turtleneck, and he comes on the first. We established earlier that Lily hates the word moist, so he walks onto the stage just sort of staring off into the middle distance.
He puts his foot up on a chair and like takes the Captain Morgan pose.
Yeah, and he just goes, moist. And he just says it over and over again.
And we get the voiceover from Ted. Bob Saget does Ted, like older Ted's voiceover, and he says that was the first 40 minutes.
Yes, and then he proceeds to shoot them at point blank range with a water gun for another period of time.
He goes, I need to reload. The play is not over, and leaves the stage.
Yes, and then finally he comes back out with like a robot costume, like a homemade, made from a cardboard box with tinfoil robot, and he's going, feelings inside. Very, very funny. And then it ends with a virtuoso recorder performance, which the recorder is truly the most unbearable musical instrument known to man. It's just so hard.
He plays it correctly at first, and then he switches to just like not holding any of the holes closed and just going,
yeah, and honestly, I feel like even the most accomplished recorderist, it's still hard to take. Just that high-pitched sound is rough. And yeah, I put in my notes, even listening to it on the TV, I was like tempted to leave the room.
And Lily, that breaks Lily. She's like, okay, that's it. Fine, you win. It's been 2.5 hours. Like, I'm ready to go. This was awful. You win. And he's like, oh man, I really had you going. Oh, but you should see what I had ready for what was coming next. Next was going to be really bad.
Yeah, this Barney, not unlike Jake Peralta in the next things, has this seemingly like infinite amount of time and resources that he can devote to these silly escapades. And so, yeah, he says, well, the best stuff is actually in Act 2. And so you really should stick around for that. He's sort of sheepishly proud of what he's put together.
Right.
And he genuinely wants them to stay. And so they're like, okay, Barney, we'll stay. And then, yeah, in the second half, Neil Patrick Harris gets to bust out a little bit of his singing and dancing. He's kind of like, do you remember what he's actually doing?
He's singing a love song to the toaster because he's like, the robot has developed feelings, and he's like, the toaster is my love, and he's singing to the toaster. And then what spurs Marshall to be like, that's it, I can't take it anymore?
I just have in my notes that he busts out the singing and dancing, and then I have like arrow slap. Mm-hmm. So I think it's that like drives Marshall over the edge, and he just gets up, slaps Neil Patrick Harris across the face, says, that's to cut to credits.
Yes.
End of episode. And so, yeah, just like we were saying, it's truly the opposite of the Bar Wars or the paintball thing, where this whole episode has absolutely nothing to do with that, except at the end, it's like, what can we do to Barney to sort of, retaliate? Yeah. And so by saying that's too, it's like we talked about the first time, it rewards everybody who remembers that previous episode where Barney explained what's the sort of parameters.
The rules of the slap bet. So they made a slap bet on whether or not Robin did porn, because she had this secret and she wouldn't go to malls. And that was when it was discovered that there was this videotape, and the very beginning of it looks like the very beginning of
it's shoddy.
The very beginning of her music video looks like a porn movie. And so Barney stops it before it goes any further, slaps Marshall, and is like, booyah, I win. And then Robin goes, wait. this isn't porn. I wish it were porn. This is even more embarrassing. Hits play. So then Lily, as the slap bet commissioner, is like, due to a premature slappage, she rewarded Marshall either 10 slaps right then and there or 5 slaps to be doled out at any point in time over eternity. And Barney got to choose which punishment he wanted for the premature slappage. He chose the 5 slaps doled out over all eternity, therefore setting up this continuing slap bet. What I will say about this is I watched this episode not necessarily live because I think I had TiVo or, I think I had TiVo at this time. And so but I watched it, not knowing anything, basically the day after it aired or later that night so I could fast forward through commercials or whatever. I screamed when this happened. I was like, oh, slap number 2! Yeah! It was such, you're saying it was like rewarding. It was the best reward. It was like, this is season 2 of this show. It was already pretty good, but we didn't know how good it was going to be yet. You know what I mean? And this was just like, this is the best.
Do you think that Will Smith had watched this episode just before he attended the Oscars that night? Because it's sort of the same exact move.
It is the
coming
same exact
up from
move.
The front row and just slapping the person.
Whacking him and then walking back to his seat.
Yeah. Maybe
Keep your wife's name out.
Maybe Will Smith and Chris Rock had made a slap bet years prior.
I think Chris Rock would have said that in his stand-up special where he called out Will Smith for many, many things.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, so very fun. Again, not a ton of screen time devoted to it, but in some ways that sort of makes it even more special.
Yeah, really fun.
All right, let's finish it up with Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Season 2, Episode 4, Halloween 2.
Yeah, so this is another one that it's not as extravagant with the filmmaking style as the paintball ones in Community, but over the years, they do have a lot of fun with these Halloween episodes in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and they use them in all different ways. They bring in other characters, like eventually Craig Robinson's criminal character that's sort of like an off-again, on-again ally/enemy gets worked in, and they use it in all different ways. Eventually, it's going to factor into Jake and Amy's romantic relationship, lots of stuff going on. So the first time they established it as Jake vowed to steal Holt's medallion, I think, some sort of like
a medal.
Yeah, Medal of Honor or Medal of Valor,
something
I think
like
it
that,
was.
yeah.
And he won. And it's all basically about pride with this thing. It's all like it's like little kids. They want the other person to have to say, you're a genius, you're the best ever, you're the best detective on the force or whatever. And so that's sort of what's at stake here, in addition to this thing of Jake sort of wagering free overtime and Captain Holt wagering paperwork that Peralta would have to do for him. But as usual, Captain Holt doesn't want any part in the shenanigans, or so we think. And so the way that Jake convinces him to participate in the bet is ultimately to give him 5-1 odds.
Yeah.
He keeps escalating. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and whenever he's like, all right, I will give you, if you win 5 weeks of free overtime in exchange for just the 1 week of paperwork that you can dish off to me, if you win, or I guess vice versa.
Yeah, that's it.
And so he agrees, and this time it's all about his watch, right? Captain Holt has a special watch that Jake claims he can steal off his wrist in the next 24 hours, and if he does, he'll win the bet.
Right. And so just like with Cheers, in this episode, we have an awful lot of misdirection, an awful lot of, you didn't know what was actually going on. This was what was happening. In the first Halloween heist, we did get that as well, but it was Jake that was like the plan within the plan. And it looked like the plan wasn't going to plan, but actually that was the plan. Same thing kind of in this episode, only we find out at the end that it was actually all Holt that had set this up. He'd been planning it since last Halloween. He'd been plotting his revenge.
Yes, many reversals. Captain Holt, played by Andre Braugher, is a great example of like what we always talk about with like Spock from Star Trek or something, the total straight man, humorless person who actually is played with a lot of humor and really knows how to sell that gravitas in a way that he's constantly undermining himself. And so this starts. Jake gathers everybody in the briefing room. He's dressed like a magician. He says he got this off of like a dead magician or something. He's pulling out like the scarves from his sleeve.
Like,
and
this whole suit is stuffed with scarves.
Yeah, he finds a dead pigeon in his breast pocket. We just see like the feathers.
He's like, there's a dead dove in there.
But he's trying to sort of draft everybody to help him. He gives everybody code names. He says, Rosa, you're going to be the dagger. Boyle, you're going to be the deuce.
Yeah, which he does. He keeps telling Boyle, like, I wish you would change that name. I can't believe you asked for that name. He says, it means poop.
Yeah, Amy's going to be the hall monitor. And she's like, yes, exactly. And then he introduces his ace in the hole, Fingers the pickpocket, right? He brings in this guy. And
they're like, wait, you've hired a criminal?
Yeah.
How can you trust him?
Yeah, and to prove his skills, right? The guy's like, I stole all your wallets or whatever. Yeah. And then Boyle asks him like, well, where's my something? And he's like, check your coat pocket. Oh
yeah, it was he stole Boyle's croissant, and he goes, where's the smoked ham? And he says, check your front pocket. And there's like deli ham stuck to the fabric material in his pocket. It's so gross. Yeah. And so they sort of initiate this assault where, Captain Holt has basically locked himself in his office and is like, I'm just going to stay in here and wait you out. Right,
there's no way you can get my watch. And so Hitchcock and Scully start singing opera music from right outside his office. Rosa gasses his office. She does like a little somersault and then throws some sort of like gas pellet or something.
Yeah, well, before that, the reason the opera is being sung is so that he won't hear that the lock is being burned. Like, there's like a welder who's there and he's burning out the lock that's keeping the door closed. And then through that hole, Rosa throws the smoke grenade. And then, of course, Holt comes out. They cut the music. Fingers walks by, takes the watch.
Yeah, Fingers like touches him. He has some sort of like, Captain Holt's like, Jake, how dare you, like endanger this citizen or something.
Yeah,
and
he
Fingers
bumps into him.
Yeah, he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm okay. And you could see he's obviously pulling the pickpocket thing of sort of bumping into the person and, slipping off the watch. And the part of the plan is that he's going to replace it with a decoy so that Captain Holt won't know that it's missing until later. And so Jake will be able to reveal to him, haha, the watch you're wearing actually isn't yours. I have it. So Jake has a plan. He's going to meet up with Fingers the pickpocket at the bar, the police bar they always go to, and, do this handoff. He shows up at the bar and he asks the bartender, where's Fingers?
He says, I think you have a package for me.
Yes. He gives him the package, which is just a note saying, thanks for the watch.
Right.
And so, yes, Fingers has split town. And when Jake goes back to the office, to the precinct, Holt starts telling him, yeah, that watch was, he says, oh, can we put this little game on hold for a while? Because, Kevin is coming by. Kevin is his husband, played by Mark Evan Jackson, although we don't see him in this episode. And he's like, Kevin gave me that watch from his mother who died, just before he gave it to me. And so it's really kind of like this priceless heirloom. He wouldn't appreciate this tomfoolery of us using it in this bet. And so, he thinks he's still wearing the watch. So he's like, just don't try to steal it while he's here. And so, of course, Jake is like, oh no, what am I going to do? His watch has been stolen by Fingers the pickpocket. And now I'm finding out just how important it is.
Right, I gotta go get it back.
Yeah, and so how does he arrange to meet Fingers in the alley?
He puts it out there on the street, right? Like that he's looking for Fingers and he needs to talk to him. And so then we go to commercial and it's just like, okay, we're going to meet Fingers in this alley. And Boyle is like, why are you, like, this is pretty sketchy. You know, why are we meeting him in this alley?
They meet Fingers in the alley and Fingers tells them, the watch is in your glove compartment. Like, what do you think? I'm an idiot? I'm not going to walk around town with a stolen police captain's watch.
Had it all along.
Yes, in
Dorothy.
true pickpocket style. Yeah, and so meanwhile, Jake's car gets towed.
Right.
And so they don't have access to his car anymore, and the glove compartment obviously is in his car. And so this almost sort of becomes like an after hours adventures in babysitting type thing, like one crazy night where they're trying to get back to this car.
Yeah, he's trying to chase after the tow truck, and he doesn't have any shoes on, and he's like, I stepped on a syringe, you know, because he's in this shady part of town. And so then but it's being towed by an NYPD tow truck. So he's like, all right, I'll just go to the impound lot. It'll be fine. And so he starts to like head that way. They start to run that way, and they run into this like party because it's Halloween, right? So all of these people dressed as bears, like
big,
fluffy
fluffy bears
come out of this bar, and he gets sort of like jostled and lost in this crowd. And Boyle, you know, he gets separated from Boyle, and the bears are like messing with him. And I can't remember, like, I don't remember what they take from him, but they take something from him. Maybe they steal his wallet. Is that what happens?
Yeah.
And then he hears Doyle say, you know, Peralta, Jake, get on the party bus.
Yes.
And so he gets on this party bus.
Now, this party bus, once again, I think is a reference to The Purge. And this time, I think it would be late enough that could be possible. When they get on the bus, the driver is in this like scary clown mask, and everyone in the bus has these sort of freaky costumes, like
it's very like S&M-y. It's very the Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes, and also, what do they call those? The old doctor, plague doctor?
The plague doctor mask.
Yeah, those kind of, all the kind of costumes that you see people in The Purge wearing, and they drive around in buses too. And so, yeah, I don't know, maybe it isn't, but second time I got a definite Purge vibe off of this. But he does sort of hitch a ride on this bus.
And they're like messing with him though. And so, you know, they're like trying to get him to dance, and he's just like, all right, you know, it's only for 16 blocks. Go along to get along, you know. So he's just like dancing with these, you know, weird people that are sort of orgy adjacent on this bus. And then he's like, thanks for the ride, jumps out, is at the impound lot, and, you know, he's looking for Doyle Boyle, sorry. Boyle's not on the party bus, so he's like, oh, I wonder what happened to him. So he goes to pay the guy at the impound lot or show him his badge. He realizes he doesn't have his wallet. He realizes he doesn't have his badge. He's like, oh, great. What am I going to do now? Okay.
Yeah. He goes to the guy. He says, like, sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. He goes, okay, I guess I'll just walk away and not try anything else.
Yeah. And so then, of course, he's jumping over the fence with the razor wire, and the next scene falls down, hurts himself, and immediately gets arrested.
Yeah, a bunch of cops swarm him, and then basically the next scene is Jake handcuffed in the
but as they're handcuffing him to arrest him, he sees the big magnet come to take his car away to the crusher.
Yes, exactly. The just like in the Simpsons episode, your car has been impounded, your car has been crushed into a cube, call this number to pick up your cube. Right. And so, the next scene is Jake in handcuffs in the interrogation room. Holt comes in and explains to him, I played you like Hans Wilhelm plays the flute, right? Because we've established in this episode that Holt loves this flute player. And just like you said at the beginning, Holt gives this whole sort of Agatha Christie-esque breakdown of how this whole thing unfolded. You know, Jake's like, how did you possibly arrange for this? It was my idea to steal your watch, right? Because Holt shows him the watch that you stole was in fact a decoy. He shows he's wearing two watches. He's like, this is the decoy you put on my watch. And then he moves his sleeve down more, and he's like, this is my actual watch, which you never had.
Yeah, Fingers immediately gave it back to me. He's been in my employ this entire time.
Right.
And Jake's like, what? How could that possibly be? How would you know I was going to use him? How could any of this stuff? And then that's when we find out that Holt has been like, what's it called? Subliminally messaging all
planting,
along.
Yes, the significance of this watch throughout the year. And this is a very funny part where they show all the quick little flashbacks of Peralta coming into the precinct and Holt going, Jake, you're 7 minutes late, and pointing at his watch and going like, oh, what do you know? You're 3 minutes early, and pointing at his watch.
In Chicago.
Yes, again and again. And then he just continues to explain, I'm the one that had your car towed.
Well, and he put the idea of fingers in his mind as well, because he, I guess had Fingers arrested, had Jake set up so that he would arrest this guy Fingers, or had him do the paperwork so he would get to know him, even though this guy was already in his employ. And so like every single step of the plan and all of the rest of the cast of characters, everybody else at the precinct was already in on Holt's plan before they ever got code names and involved in Jake's plan.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this is totally like the secret sauce of the show, because you have Andy Samberg being his total silly, just like off the wall man-child thing. And the whole thing in the show, like I said, is him devoting like 98% of his time and energy to these silly gags and stuff. But then on the other side, you have Andre Braugher talking like he's performing King Lear or something, just so dead serious in that deep voice. But what he's saying is just as silly, like he's just as ridiculous in this whole thing that he's plotted out. And it just, they do that again and again. It makes it so fun. And so when Jake Peralta says, all right, he concedes and he has to say Captain Holt is an amazing police captain and a genius. And he goes, but I'll tell you this, Captain, I started planning next year's heist this very minute. And Holt goes, congratulations, you're only 3 months behind. Great ending. And yeah, again, very, very fun. It doesn't do the same thing as Community with the parodies, but it has that thing of the escalation and sort of borrowing different. I don't even remember, was last year the one where they did the Thomas Crown Affair thing where you have like all of the decoys kind of coming out and like switching places so you can't tell who's who, or is that later?
Gosh, I don't even remember.
Yeah,
now.
they have so much fun with all these different plans and capers and stuff that they come up with. And yes, unlike the paintball thing where they'll try to switch it up, they just do the heist again and again and again.
Yeah,
but come up with different angles on it.
And we're gonna have to kind of condense, right? Because there are more heist episodes than there are of any of our other tropes that we're covering for this series. So if you've got a particular heist favorite, do let us know. We're obviously on the Reddit boards and the internets looking to see what are the top ones. But if there are specific ones that you have that are your favorites, do let us know.
Yeah. So what do we think? I mean, we've been over why these are so fun and why these shows choose to do it. It really is a treat for us, the viewers, to have these come back again and again and escalate. What do we think? I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay. So for me, I find it really hard to choose a favorite when we do this series. And the reason is that all of these are some of the best episodes of their respective shows. I think what was most fun for me in this lineup this time was to see how we have Brooklyn Nine-Nine's Halloween heist because we had Cheers. Yeah. Right? Like the very similar direct comparisons between those two, and being our earliest show and our latest show, that was really fun for me to kind of see those parallels and how one kind of exists because the other existed.
Yeah. It's interesting that Cheers is the only one that has a pure, like, external enemy the whole time. It kind of reminds me of like Saved by the Bell with Valley, right? The
Valley
big side
High.
is always going up against Valley, where, yeah, it's just this recurring thing. And in a sense, being an older show, it was before sitcoms did things like Dan Harmon, where you change the whole mise en scène of the show and turn it into a parody of a movie and stuff. In Cheers, it really is just this sort of recurring bit of like, oh yeah, every once in a while we'll do a story about how how they have to go up against their nemesis, the bar across the street, and that's Bob's Burgers borrows from that with Jimmy Pesto's.
Yep.
But it is very much just a story. Like, it might be people's favorites or one of their favorites, but it is just like, oh, episode 10 is going to be this thing. Episode 11 is going to be they're facing off against Gary's bar again. Whereas by the time you get to Community, it is like, no, this is an event. Like, we're going to set aside half the budget for a whole season for this one thing because it's just going to be totally over the top, whole different credit sequence. Like we said, just people get to literally become different characters and take on different personalities. Just, like they do so much with it that it almost becomes like, when you get to the point of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's like, okay, well, we can't do that because we can't possibly top what Community did.
Right.
And so they have to sort of approach it from a slightly different angle. So I agree. It is an embarrassment of riches, but definitely the Community one is the MVP, in my opinion, just for all the reasons we said. It's just so, it just keeps building on it and building on it. It rewards not only your knowledge of the show, but your knowledge of movies and all these other things. It gives the characters opportunities to do things that they would never do. Annie never gets to be some sort of mercenary badass. Abed never gets to be a charismatic ladies man, all these things. It really is one of the best.
That's right. So when's the movie coming? Come on, Community.
Any day now. All right, so much for the recurring rivalries. What are we talking about next week?
It's a surprise party, Jay. Shh, don't tell.
I would never.
We're going to watch Dick Van Dyke, Season 2, Episode 3, A Surprise. Surprise is a surprise. Major Dad, Season 1, Episode 2, Officer of the Day. Big Bang Theory, also Season 1, Episode 16, The Peanut Reaction. And The Middle, Season 7, Episode 13, Floating 50.
That's right. Spread the word. The surprise party episodes are next week. And until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.